Welcome everyone. Today I'm going to be doing a sew along for one of my favorite patterns, the Tally turtleneck dress. Tally comes in two different view options. View A is what I'm wearing right now, which features a turtle neckline, a drop shoulder, nice relaxed fit, with waist ties that tie to the front or back, and a midi length. View B has a crew neckline and a mini length so that you can have options to make and wear all year long. In this sewing tutorial, I'll be speaking to view A primarily, but the construction is very similar for both views, so you should be able to follow along easily. The fit of Tally turtleneck dress is meant to be relaxed and slouchy, so I recommend choosing your exact size based on the measurement chart. Due to the stretchiness of the knit fabrics intended for this pattern, if you fall in between sizes, you could either size up or size down and likely have no issues. This pattern is rated beginner friendly, so if you have never sewn with knits before, it's definitely been my goal to make the instructions and illustrations and this video as easy to follow along as possible. For this dress, knit fabrics are needed. I recommend medium weight knits ranging from 200 to 300 GSM. Some good examples could be medium weight ribs, cotton bamboo jerseys like what I have on. You could use lightweight sweater knits and even lightweight French terries. For today's tutorial, I'm going to be using this toffee color French terry from Blackbird Fabrics. This is my first time getting fabrics from Blackbird. I wanted to splurge a little bit for this tutorial, so I'm really excited. This is a rayon cotton spandex blend, and they don't have the weight on here, but I'm pretty sure it's around 200 GSM. And it's called their Day Off French Terry. So super excited to use that. You will also need a fusible knit stay tape. I got this one on Amazon. It's called Sew Keys Extremely Fine Fusible, and I'll put the link down below. But this is for reinforcing the shoulders of our dress. When working with knit fabrics that are a little bit heavier in weight, this just helps prolong the life of your garment. This is totally optional depending on what fabric you use, but I definitely recommend it. If you are a beginner, I have provided some tips and tricks in my instruction booklet that can help you choose the right materials, the right tools, and the right methods for sewing your dress. I'm going to be using a serger today, which is the most common method for sewing knit fabrics. It's fast and convenient, but if you don't own a serger, don't worry. You can use a zigzag sitting on your home machine and be just fine. When working with any knits, I recommend testing your machine settings with a scrap piece of fabric first. A lot of knits react very differently on your machines, so I don't want you to ruin your project by not testing your fabric first. If you're using the zigzag setting on your home machine, I recommend starting with a stitch length of 1.5 and a width of 5. You can increase from there depending on the thickness and stretchiness of your fabric. This pattern is also super hackable. Could easily make her into a top. Maybe I'll share that in a different video. But you can also interchange the necklines and the lengths and waist ties between both view A and view B. So imagine I have this dress, but maybe I want a different version with the crew neckline instead. You could easily switch out the pattern pieces and the construction would be the same. Okay, I think we're ready to go. So I'm gonna start projecting my pieces and cutting them out, and then we're gonna get into the sewing. To project my pattern, I'm using the Ditto, which is made by Singer. I got it from Joann.com maybe about 6 months ago, and I actually like it. I wasn't sure how I would feel about it at first because it was a little pricey and you had to have a membership in order to upload your self-drafted patterns, but not long after I purchased it, they made it free to upload your patterns. So it's definitely a convenient resource if you sew a lot. And how it works is there's this tower that you can kind of see to the left that is held up by the floor and the ceiling, and the projector is overhead, and there's an app where you can drag your pattern into and it will cut up the pattern for you on a 24-inch by 36-inch cutting table surface. So the projector actually came with my cutting mat that is the correct size and also my rotary cutter. So it was a pretty good deal. And the red dots you see as I'm cutting my pieces are so I know where to drag my fabric to after I'm done cutting a section, so it lines up perfectly for the next section. Many sewists I know who project actually like the Epson projector. Don't forget to mark your notches here, something I always forget. But the Epson is sold on eBay a lot by refurbishers, and you can get really good deals for it. Projecting may look a little tedious here, and it definitely is, but once you get the hang of it, it's super handy, and I believe that it saves a lot of time and even more paper. I'm not a fan of putting together paper patterns. You might be wondering why I only have one outline shown here as I'm projecting my pattern. With all three of the files that I provide, you can open your file in Adobe Acrobat Viewer, and there's this little layers icon with an eyeball that you can turn off all the sizes except for your own, which makes it a lot easier for projecting, for cutting and taping your patterns together, and it just helps you avoid any mistakes as you're cutting your pieces. An important thing to note here as you're cutting your ties, I have all 4 ties projected here because when you project, you lay all the pattern pieces out flat, but if you're using a printed pattern, you will need to cut 2 ties and then 2 more ties mirrored, so you'll have a total of 4. Cutting my last piece now, which is the turtleneck band. If you're sewing view B, you'll be cutting the crew neck band instead. Make sure you cut all your notches here. It's gonna look like I only cut 2 notches, but after testing, feedback came through. I added some more notches for the shoulders as well. Okay, let's make sure we have all our pieces. That was the front body on the fold, the 2 back bodies, the 2 sleeves mirrored. You have 4 ties and a turtleneck band or a crew neck band. And just a note here before sewing, so you can see what the back of my fabric looks like. This is a French terry, so it has a slight texture on the back. Okay, now we are going to reinforce the shoulders of our dress. So with the front body piece facing with the wrong side up, you are going to walk the length of the shoulders with your stay tape and cut to the length of the shoulders. Repeat this for both sides. Make sure the textured side of the tape that has little glue beads on the back of it is facing down towards the fabric. After cutting the fusible, we're going to give it a nice good press. I would definitely say a few seconds for each section of the shoulder to make sure that the glue activates. Repeat for the other side. And there you have it, a nice secure shoulder seam. Okay, now I've got my back body pieces laid out with one piece facing right side up and the other piece right sides together, and we are going to pin along the length of the center back seam. I've got my seam almost all pinned up, and then we are going to sew down the length of the center back seam with a 3/8 inch seam allowance using your chosen method. After sewing your center back seam, you can give it a press if you like, but it's not necessary for knit patterns. And then lay it out flat here with right sides up and bring your front body piece on top with right sides together. Line up your shoulders on both sides and then pin them along the length of the shoulder. Repeat this for the other shoulder, and then we are either going to serge or use a zigzag stitch with a 3/8 inch seam allowance on both shoulders. Next, you're going to take your turtleneck band or your crew neck band and fold it in half horizontally with right sides together, then fold it in half again vertically with wrong sides together, lining up the left side raw edges. Pin along that vertical edge, making sure everything is lined up perfectly. Once pinned, we are going to serge or zigzag stitch along that vertical edge at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Go slow here, you are sewing through 4 layers of fabric, so it can be a little difficult, but worth it when you see the end result. Grab the top layer of your sewn neckband and reach inside to grab and turn the neckband right side out, revealing your nice flat center back neck seam. To attach your neckband, lay your sewn dress out with wrong sides together. Grab your neckband and make sure the raw edges are pointing up, and align the neckband to the body with the center back neck seams lined up and the center fronts lined up. Grab your dress and scrunch it up and bring it through the turtleneck band or the crew neck band until the raw edges are lined up. Make sure the center front notches of your neckband line up with the center front neck of your dress, and we are going to pin to hold in place. Do the same thing with your center back dress seam and the center back seam of your neckband. Put a pin there. Next, you will need to find your shoulder seam notches, line those up with each of the shoulder seams and put a pin. So you will now have 4 even pins around your neckline. Next, I like to add 4 more pins evenly spread around the neckline. You can walk the seams and gently pull and align and place a pin in the center. We will be stretching the neckline as we sew so that it is evenly distributed. After placing your pins, we will be serging or using a zigzag stitch around the neckline with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Go very slow as you're doing the neck. You're sewing through a lot of layers and you have to pull the neckband slightly as you go around. After sewing our nice neckband, now we're going to attach the sleeves. Lay your body out flat so the armhole is one big curve. Grab one of your sleeve pieces and lay it down right sides together. Line up your center sleeve notch with the shoulder seam and pin, and then line up the double notches with the back of the sleeve and the single notch with the front of the sleeve. If your notches are not matching up, you may have grabbed the wrong sleeve, so check to make sure as you pin. And now I'm just walking the seams and bending the curves a little bit so that the pins go on nice and smooth. Once the armhole is pinned evenly, we're going to serge or use a zigzag stitch with a 3/8 inch seam allowance along the armhole edge, and then repeat these steps for the other sleeve. To sew the ties, grab one of your tie pieces and lay it down right sides up. Grab another tie piece and place it with right sides together, making sure that the slight curve on the right side is following the same direction. If it's not following the same direction, you may need to grab a different one of your tie pieces. Pin the two pieces together along the long top and bottom edges and the short edge that's on the left side. Make sure you're leaving open the slightly curved edge on the right. Repeat this process for your other two set of ties, and then we will be serging or using a zigzag stitch along the two longest edges of the tie and the shortest edge of the tie, making sure to leave open the curved edge on the right so that when we're finished we can flip the ties right side out. After sewing both ties, reach your hand inside to turn them right side out. If you used a zigzag stitch, you may want to clip the corners first to reduce some of the bulk. Lay the front body out flat with the right sides up. Grab one of your ties and place it on top, checking that they are on the correct side following the curve of the hip and aligning the raw edges. Pin a few times, and then we are going to grab a needle and thread, knot the ends of your thread, and trim the excess. And we are going to do a few basting stitches here just to hold the ties in place for when we pin the body. You can use a zigzag stitch here if you don't want to do hand sewing. Just sew your zigzag at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I like to do a little back stitch here instead of doing a full knot just to hold it in place. Trim the ends, and then this is a great time to test to make sure that your ties are in a place that you like them if you want to try your dress on. But once they are in a good place, you are going to fold your back body over your front body with right sides together. Line up your armhole seams and pin, and then pin along the side seams of your dress. Come back up to pin the full length of your underarm sleeve seam. After all this pinning, we are going to serge or zigzag stitch with a 3/8 inch seam allowance all the way from the sleeve opening to the dress opening. Move slowly as you get to sewing your armhole. Make sure that your pieces are aligned, and then you're going to repeat the steps for sewing on your ties and sewing your side seam for the other side of the dress. And the last step we have to do here is hemming our sleeves and our dress. So I like to keep the body inside out and then turn back the sleeves 1 inch and give them a good press. You can put a few pins in if you choose, just to hold the hem in place before sewing.
repeat this for the other sleeve, and then we're going to move on to the hem of the dress. So same process here, moving slowly. I'm turning back the hems and using my ruler to check that it's 1 inch. This is a hot ruler that I got on Amazon. It's a super handy tool to allow you to iron without your ruler melting. Definitely stick a few pins in here to hold this hem in place. I've repeated all this for the other side, and we have a nice clean turn back. Alright, last step is we need to top stitch these hems along the edge. I'm using a single needle stitch here. I don't necessarily advise this, but the sleeve openings and the hem opening of this dress don't need to stretch that much in my opinion, but if you're sewing on your home machine, you can use a narrow zigzag stitch running along the edge of the turn back. I have tips on how to do this on page 10 of my instructions if you would like to try some different methods for your turn back hems. And there we have it, a finished Tally turtleneck dress. I'm super happy with how this French terry turned out. It's very cozy. Please tag me on Instagram and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more tutorials.